Good evening, dear friends. Добрый вечер, дорогие друзья. Сегодня у нас в гостях Марк Шушкевич, республиканец. Наша программа будет на английском языке, обычно на русском, сегодня на английском. Нажмите кнопочку с буквами CC внизу, посмотрите, будут ли работать субтитры. Я надеюсь, что они будут работать сегодня, и вы увидите, как это звучит в переводе на русский язык, если у вас соответствующие установки сделаны в YouTube. Добрый вечер всем, кто пришел. Мы начинаем нашу программу. We begin our program with Mark Shushkevich, a Republican, a candidate for New York City Council, District 47 in Brooklyn, New York. There is a wording down at the bottom of the screen saying donate at mark4nyc.com. This is the address you type in. You can see how to donate, how much would you like to donate. We will try to raise some funds for Mr. Shushkevich. And if you want to read about Mark and his program, you go to just mark4ny.com. This is where you get a lot of information about what his plans are, why he's running. And now we're going to continue with our plans, the conversation about how it goes for Mr. Shushkevich this year. Mark, good evening.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
A lot of people are listening to us, mostly local people, but also lots of people in other parts of the world. And by the world, I mean not just United States, but elsewhere in Israel and Russia and Europe. And it, of course, it stays on YouTube. So how's your campaign going this year?
Well, very good. I mean, unlike last year where everything was shut down, I was able to do different campaign fundraiser events. I did one in Staten Island, even though it's not in my district, to help support the owners of Max Public House who were shut down by the government. So I'm doing another one June 19th for my 40th birthday at Lone Star and Fifth Avenue in Bay Ridge. And, that's another business that was kind of a lot of businesses were affected by the coronavirus. Almost everybody was, but some of them were especially attacked by the government. And I'm looking to support all small businesses as much as possible. So if I could fundraise with events and raise money at the same time, it makes a big difference than last year where everything was shut down and, it was harder to raise funds last year. So a lot more going on with the campaign. I'm unanimously endorsed by the Republican and the Conservative Party. Unanimous endorsements don't happen all the time because people make enemies with different factions within politics. And, I got along with everyone for an entire campaign year last year. I ran for state assembly. I was ahead 9% on election night. I possibly had my election stolen. I believe it was, and I didn't have the money to pay for lawyers and investigate. I was supposed to be the first Republican in Brooklyn in 100 years. But they're not going to make me, give up the fight at that point. So I threw my hat in the ring for city council this year. I'm unopposed. So like I said, unanimously endorsed. I don't have a primary. My election is November 2nd. And, a lot of the nonpartisan ideas that I had last year I'm implementing this year to the better education with life skills classes, after school video game program, funding affordable housing with municipal bonds instead of giving developers 15-year tax abatements, helping the homeless with rehabilitation centers and job training. A lot of details, like you said before. I go in depth on all of them at mark4ny.com. And, I'm willing to talk about them in detail here tonight as well. So looking forward to hearing any of the questions you have on any of my platforms or any of anything else that you want to talk about, whether it's national or local, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, what came to my mind as I was listening to you, I sent you the link where we were discussing, by the way. What comes to my mind is to ask you how the stealing happens. How did it work, in your opinion, last time? So this is what concerns most of our viewers and listeners, because we don't want it to happen again on the scale it happened last year. And it's a serious thing for all of us, because otherwise we just turn around and we sit it out.
Yeah, well, one of the problems that I had specifically with the absentee ballots is, voter information is public. So you go on and you want to request an absentee ballot online. What the Democrats were doing, citywide, possibly even statewide, is they were going down the voter registration list and requesting absentee ballots for everyone. Now, they're not supposed. Every voter is not supposed to get an absentee ballot, only if they request it. And people were getting absentee ballots when they weren't requesting it. Like, you had over 16,000 absentee ballot requests, 9,000 of them came in, a few hundred of them were returned to sender. So now, why would it be a return to sender? The person doesn't live there anymore. If you don't live there anymore, why are you requesting an absentee ballot? Because they didn't request it. So that's cheating, basically, because someone else is requesting those absentee ballots for someone else, and that's cheating. So on election night, 5,000 absentee ballots were in already, and I was ahead by almost 3,000. So my opponent would have needed over 80% approximately of those absentee ballots, and she got a little over 70% of them because another 4,000 came in after election night, and we don't know what the story is with those, how relevant they are. Some things, might have came in after election day. Some of them are stamped after election day, but they're saying those are the ones from the ballot drop boxes that were there. Also, after the election, I found out that one of the voting machines wasn't counted, and my lead dropped by almost 500 just from that machine. So there's a lot of things that are, result in suspicion. Now, I have a 9% lead on election night. I would have liked to have an audit on my election, like they're doing the audits on the presidential election. Obviously, that gets the most attention. They do a hand count if it's within a 0.5%. Mine was about 1% when the final tally came in, so there was no automatic hand count. I don't have the lawyers to fight things. I requested certain information from the Board of Elections, the IP addresses of the absentee ballots, a copy of the absentee ballots, a copy of the absentee ballot application. After the election day, I was able to, I got copies of all the absentee ballots. Me and my team of volunteers reviewed signatures. We contested hundreds of ballots that didn't add up, where the signatures clearly didn't match. Some of them, also Governor Cuomo made it after the primary last year that those absentees, if there's no signature or the signature is missing, there's 3 days, I believe, to cure the ballot. So they send a letter out to everyone and ask them if to sign an affidavit to confirm that it's their ballot. Now, first of all, if it's fraudulent and you're sending the ballot to somebody else, somebody could sign that fraudulently the same way they could sign it otherwise. Also, they use the signatures on the most recent. So if they sent in an application for an absentee ballot with that signature, they update signatures that way also in some cases. So there's a lot of things wrong with the Board of Elections where it's susceptible to fraud. So you basically have to win by a landslide, like Nicole Maliotakis did, who ran for Congress and is doing a great job in Staten Island and Brooklyn, where it's such a large landslide that to do anything at that point would obviously trigger suspicion to the point of an obvious investigation. In my case, nobody's won in 100 years in Coney Island, and to think that obviously the common perception, especially from the Democrats, are, well, Republicans weren't voting by mail, so that's why he lost. A lot of people voted by mail, but why did approximately 8,000 people get an absentee ballot that they didn't send in? Did they change their mind? And then you had the voting error where people were sent 2 absentee ballots, and some people sent in both of those absentee ballots and voted in person. Now, when you vote in person, that negates those other 2
Yeah.
absentee ballots. But it leaves room for human error, because you would think that if you're putting in an absentee ballot, and you gotta have a second one, there's the barcode on there, it should just automatically trigger that there's a duplicate, but they have to manually go into the pile of those absentee ballots and remove all the duplicates. So is there a possibility that some of those duplicates weren't removed? Maybe. That's why you audit things and you look and see, did multiple ballots come in. The problem is, after the fact, once
Mm-hmm.
those ballots are open, they're completely separated. So there's no way, if John Smith, was a fraudulent absentee ballot, like that person died, whatever the case may be, that would mean that you don't know whether he voted for Mark SZUSZKIEWICZ or my opponent. So there's no way of actually knowing what that fraudulent ballot voted for. So that's one of the main problems. The other thing is, during that cure the ballot process, I personally was going door to door to, for the, some of the Republican signatures, and some of the Democrats, especially in the Russian community, because a lot of them are registered Democrat, but they're voting Republican. They just never got around to changing it to Republican.
Yeah.
And I would ask if, if the person was home, and whatever the case may be. One lady, when I knocked on the door in the Warbass houses in Brooklyn, and she told me that person hasn't lived here in 17 years. But when my volunteer called them, they said, yeah, come at 3 o'clock. So they'll probably meet you downstairs in the lobby, even though they don't live in the building they either don't live in the building or they live in a different apartment. It's not even that person. They just have the voter record information or whatever the case may be. And, they'll sign for something even though they don't live there. So that's one thing. Then I had another volunteer call somebody and say, oh, that person's not alive anymore, but I have power of attorney, so I voted for them. Obviously, that's not acceptable. Now, these are a few cases, so they always say, well, there's fraud, but there's not enough to overturn it. That's not acceptable. People need to go to jail for fraud. I don't care. I'm sure there's fraud in the local Republican elections, too, across the country. I don't care if you're Democrat or Republican. If you're manipulating the integrity of our voting process, you should go to jail. I don't care whether I believe in your values or not. And the problem is, you have things where, Biden won, possibly, most likely by fraud, and people want to go and just say, well, we didn't like Trump, so we don't care. And they just want to believe the narrative that the Trump supporters are crazy and they're just blindly following Trump. But they're not looking at the information that's there. They're not looking at how local counties had more votes than there are registered voters. Now, how is that possible? Obviously, it's not, unless you're doing something fraudulent. How is it that absentee ballots on the presidential election that were mail-in ballots don't have creases on them? Like, if you're mailing a ballot, obviously there's going to be a crease. You can't have a clean, perfect piece of paper with an absentee ballot. They're quick to say, oh, well, there might be some, but not enough to overturn the election. It's the same thing with the presidential election. You don't know, even if you prove, like the last time I checked with Arizona, that there's possibly 250,000 fraudulent ones. They separate who, for the privacy of the voter, who voted for who. So even if you prove that there was 1 million fraudulent votes, there's no way of knowing that all of those fraudulent votes were for Trump or for Biden, and that's part of the problem. But people need to start going to jail all across the country for, I don't care whether it's just one vote and it doesn't make a difference. It does make a difference. You need to send the message to people that if you do any type of voter manipulation, you need to go to jail, and we need to start taking it seriously. Some people get caught and go to jail, but that's another perception. You have people that say there's not enough, it's not significant, there's only X amount. There's only X amount of people that got caught. There's plenty of people that do all different types of crimes and don't get caught. That doesn't mean that the crime didn't happen. So we need to have units that are investigating and sending people to jail.
That's right. Mark, what I'm hearing and how our listeners or Russians Russian Americans are feeling about it, It's almost doesn't matter when you want to win on the merits. Your what matters is your party affiliation and every trick in the book they can pull off with the machines. So how to overcome all this?
Well, like I said, last year I didn't have the money for lawyers, so I wasn't able to really and dig deep. When I asked for the information that I was talking about with the IP addresses and everything, the Freedom
Mhm.
of Information Act is 25 cents a page. That would have resulted in thousands of dollars that I would have gladly paid for if I had money in my campaign funds. I only raised $2,000 last year. That's in an election where 2 years prior, the state assembly candidate raised $100,000. So this is something where I did all the work myself. I designed my own website. I do my own graphic design. I couldn't do mailers, so I was hand delivering marketing material to every door in the neighborhood. So I was doing everything myself to pull off a victory. And it comes down to having the ability to fight. I mean, Trump is doing an audit. He's exposing a lot of this fraud. We have states like Georgia with voter ID and obviously Florida changing their election laws. So we're noticing more and more when you uncover these things, the public is going to say, we demand that you go and you change the laws. Voter ID, they try to say it's racist. It's actually racist to think that minorities don't have an ID, and that's starting to be exposed. You have videos of people being asked, do you have an ID? Like, you have to buy, to have an ID. Who are these people that don't have an ID and are trying to vote? Like, I mean, honestly, like, if you don't have an ID, you can't get a hotel
If you
room,
want
you
to
can't
get
rent a
anywhere
car,
in this
you can't,
country, you have to have an ID. You
yeah,
want to get
you
into a
can't
building
travel.
to be interviewed for you want to get a cell phone.
If you want to get a job, your employer asks for your ID and social security card and verify who you are before you get a job. It's literally pretty much anything that you do in the world. If a police officer stops you, if you're over 16, I believe you need to have an ID, or they could arrest you if you say you don't have an ID. So an ID is pretty much mandatory to live in this country. Like, it's not something where people don't have an ID, these people that don't have an ID, if they do exist, let's help them get it. Let's put in a program where helping these people get an ID,
Absolutely.
not trying to say that it's the only thing it's affecting is preventing people from cheating. It's not preventing honest people to vote. Like, does anybody in the country or in the know anyone that doesn't have an ID that wants to vote? Like, honestly, it's completely ridiculous. It's just so that to make it easier for people to cheat, and that's why the Democratic Party pushes the narrative of racist. Because anything the Republican Party does is racist. They try to swing the narrative around to racist, when meanwhile the Democratic Party is the one with the history of racism. They
Yeah,
started the KKK. They're the ones with slavery. The Republican Party is the one that fought for civil rights, fought for the women to right to vote.
that's
There's
true.
nothing historically that the Republican Party has done that is racist, but there's a long history of the Democratic Party and racism. And the only thing is, the Democratic Party controls the media, so they put out the false narrative. And if you even look at Malcolm X, he said, be careful, because the newspapers will have you hating the oppressed and loving the people doing the oppressing. And he warned about the media a long time ago, and that's exactly what's happening. The media is manipulating people to make it seem like the Republicans are the bad guys, but we've always been the good guys, especially when it comes to the minority community. And that's another thing. Donald Trump got more minority votes than any Republican since like the 1960s. And because they're waking
That's
up,
why
because
they're afraid of him.
yep, you have people like Candace Owens. You have people like the real MAGA Hulk. You have people like Kingface, who passed away, unfortunately. R.I.P. to him. These are six-figure and seven-figure influencers who are minorities, who are waking the black community up to say, the Republicans aren't the bad guys. You're not a victim. Like, you can succeed.
Sure.
This whole victim mentality narrative is making people feel
Doesn't
sorry
take
for
you anywhere. It
themselves.
doesn't take. People have their own problems. They only can listen to it so long. They
Exactly.
just don't. There is a question from Alice Williams. How does Republican Party of New York help you in your campaign?
Well, the Republican Party has helped me. They've the Republican and the Conservative Party put advertisements on my behalf. The New York State Republican Party actually put together a flyer for me that had all four candidates. Myself, Mike Tanusis, who won his state assembly race in Staten Island and Brooklyn, Nicole Malliotakis, who won, Vito Bruno, who ran for a state senate, myself, and then Donald Trump right below that. So my photo was actually right above Donald Trump. I actually have that flyer if you want me to show it to you, but it's hanging on the wall over there as a souvenir, so I'd have to walk away for a second. But
we'll do it some other time. Yeah, but that's the one thing to be proud of.
Yeah, the state, to be on the same ballot as Donald Trump, to be on the same flyer as Donald Trump is an honor. I actually received a medal from Donald Trump for doing the giant, helping with the giant flag that was on Fifth Avenue in Manhattan when he was there. When he came back to New York, we welcomed him with the giant Trump flag.
So this is the man behind the flag, ladies and gentlemen. This is the man.
The actual man behind the flag is Dion Cini, but he's somebody that he's somebody that I help. You know, I show up to all the flag drops. I hold them as well. I'm on the bullhorn speaking about Trump. Black Lives Matter people will come up to me and say Trump is a racist, and I'll have a civil discussion. Okay, how? What has he done that's racist? And Joe Biden had put in the '94 crime bill that incarcerated numerous black people. And Trump is behind the Second Chance Act that released a lot of these people that were put in jail because of Joe Biden. So I'm out there. I'm speaking to people. I'm not causing any problems or anything. We're out there. And recently he also did the Yankee Stadium flag drop.
Right.
And I called him. I called Dion. I said, how come I didn't get an invite? And he said he sent it to me through a Telegram group, which I didn't check. I was like, then he called me and told me this last Saturday that, the Mets are.
So what happened? Tonight. What happened? Tell the viewers, please. What happened? The Yankees and then at the Mets game, right?
Yeah, the Mets game, I went and, I was on the way to a Hamptons event fundraiser for Curtis Lewa to support him for mayor. And then I got the phone call on the way there. The fundraiser in the Hamptons ended at 6. The game started at 7:15. So I told him I'll be back by probably 7:30, 7:45 at Citi Field. So he said, all right, we'll drop the flag at about 8 o'clock. And so I met him there, and then we dropped the flag. I was in the middle. Him and the other guy, Joe, were on each corner, and I was just pointing down to the flag. During the whole time, I didn't actually, I wasn't actually holding it. I was just in the middle there. I was still in my suit from the fundraiser, and we have videos on my Instagram and social media showing that that video, both from the perspective, and then Dion was wearing a camera on his hat, so we got the first person perspective, which showed how what happened with the security and the police, and there was a disgruntled Mets fan who ended up hitting Dion from behind, and then the police arrested him. So those videos are on my Instagram, and that my social media is at Mark4NY. Kind of like how those of you watching on screen see the Mark4NY. It's I'm on all platforms with the same username: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Gab, Parler. All of them are all Mark4NY. I mainly use Instagram, but I have the same username for all platforms, and you can see some of that videos.
Fantastic. Must feel very well. And the reception, I heard the stadium welcoming noises, but people who were next to you, they were kind of, quit it, stop doing it, stop interrupting the game. I heard those as well. And that's still, part of the picture, what you're going to do. You got to win those people as well. Let me ask you to say a few words about your background. Some people are asking, do you have any connection with Belarus, or it's a Polish name? Because there was I think a prime minister of Belarus, a president of Belarus, by name of SZUSZKIEWICZ.
Yeah, that's, when you Google SZUSZKIEWICZ, that's, that used to be the top name that came up, and now it's mine because of the national media that I got for for the upset that I had, and they try to put some negative publicity about me with QAnon or whatever the case may be. But yeah, I'm not related to him. It is a Polish name. Both my parents were born in Poland. I was born in Brooklyn. Born in Coney Island. I spent most of my life in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, but New York and Brooklyn my whole life. I became a stockbroker after high school at the age of 19. I was the youngest stockbroker of my firm. I later became a financial advisor, and I tried juggling a lot of things over my life. So, real estate. I got my real estate license, during a vacation when I was working for MetLife as a financial advisor. Then got it again later on and dabbled with real estate while doing financial services. Was a financial advisor for several companies over the years, independent insurance broker now. But I'm looking to do financial seminars to educate people in the community about how different things work, how credit works, and how life insurance works and how disability insurance works, and just do seminars to educate people. I'm going to be doing some free Zoom meetings over the course of the summer, hopefully, to educate people on how certain things work, because a lot of people are misinformed. And things like life insurance and disability insurance, those are all important. Retirement is important. College savings is important. A lot of people don't understand and they put things off. So if they're better informed, on a free Zoom meeting, let's say, as opposed to a pushy salesperson that's trying to sell them something, maybe they could get the education to take action. So.
Mark, you have, I think Republicans have a very strong bench, as they say in sports. This year, we like Curtis Sliwa, we like Lee Zeldin, we like Ina Vernikov, which is my district, we like you, and I think those are very good winning candidates. And I loved working with Vito Bruno on a very short basis when I took him to Russian radio, interviewed him and did a translation of the interview. And we ran it, and we ran commercials for him on the radio, Freedom FM radio, out of Brooklyn, New York, for the constituents of in the area. Who would you prefer to win among your Democratic opponents, among themselves in the primaries? So you would be comfortable confronting them in the elections in November.
It really doesn't matter to me which one wins, as far as an opponent is concerned. You have Brooke Crosney and Ari Kagan, who are longtime politicians. They get, establishment donations. I know Ari Kagan gets the donations from developers and things of that nature. So in my opinion, they're less trustworthy. They might not be bad people, but just when you've been in politics for so long, I'm just, that's why I got into politics in the first place. I don't trust other people to do the right thing. I trust myself to do the right thing. So Stephen Patster is a young guy who, very enthusiastic. He's out, doing things to help clean the community. He was also there, the Place NYC, which is an education organization that endorsed me. So he has some ideas for education. So if I don't win, I would like it to be one of the guys who are an establishment, either him or Joe Packer, who's not involved in politics at all. He's, I believe, lived in the NYCHA housing or in the community for his entire life. He does. Me and him are on sort of along the same lines with affordable housing being something that we need to improve, and that's something that he's worked on. But he's never been in politics, so he has difficulty fundraising as well. Just like, I don't get six-figure donations, so we rely on the average person donating $5, $10, whatever the case may be, because it makes a difference. And with the matching funds program in New York City, it's a beautiful thing, because somebody like me that doesn't have a $100,000 donation from a developer can get a small donation. If somebody donates $10, then I get another $80 from the city. Now, if 10 people donate $10, then that's, that's $800 extra I get from the city. And that's the thing. A lot of people feel like their $5, $10 donation doesn't make a difference, but if everyone doesn't think that way and donates a few dollars, it would make a huge difference. But the problem is most people think it's not going to matter. $5 doesn't matter, $10 doesn't matter, but it adds up if everyone does it. And another problem is with Republicans, people don't want to donate to people that they think are going to lose. That's another reason why I didn't get many donations last year, because it's not a district where Republicans usually win, so they figured this guy doesn't have a chance. If I had the donations, I probably wouldn't even come down to a stolen election, because not only would I have had the money for a lawyer, but I would have had the money for more marketing, to do more mailers, more emails, more robocalls, text messages, things of that nature. Been able to afford different employees to go out there and market. So it makes a difference. And the mainstream media controlled by Democrats puts in the narrative that Republicans don't have a chance. They don't give the proper coverage to the Republican candidate for mayor. It's kind of like everything when Nicole Malliotakis was running 4 years ago for mayor. You barely saw her on the TV. Once the Democratic primary was over and de Blasio won, it was like he won, and that's it. There's not, you had debates, and he just basically talked about Trump the whole time, and she's a Trump supporter, and that was pretty much the extent of the debates. But you're not really getting enough coverage for the Republican candidate. Curtis Lee was someone who's out there constantly. He's already well known. He's going out there. He's doing press conferences. So myself, I'm in a district that has changed a lot in the last 4 years. I proved last year that I could win in areas like Coney Island and win people over that haven't been spoken to. Republicans don't normally go to the projects and speak to the people who live there, because they automatically assume that they're not going to
plantation.
Vote for them.
That's a plantation.
I have no problem going there and speaking to them and talking about my ideas. I have, ideas for the NYCHA housing, as far as, maybe a rent-to-own program where people could pay a few $100s more a month, and after 15 years or so, they own the apartment, and they can't sell it at market value. They can only sell it to somebody else who's low income. It's a complex strategy. So it's sort of like almost like a co-op, where you'd have to approve the person who's buying it. But it's if people are owning it, they're going to take better care of it. And if there's more money coming in, then you could pay for additional security, you could pay for additional maintenance, and people don't have to live in the horrible conditions that they're in. Also, after 2 years, if they go into the rent-to-own program, their income restrictions are lifted. A lot of times people aren't bettering themselves because they're afraid they're going to lose their apartment if they make more money. So they're trapped with, if I make more money, I'm not going to get the food stamps anymore. I'm not going to get the Medicaid anymore. I'm not going to have the apartment anymore. And they don't better themselves. They don't reach their potential. We need to get rid of that and make it so, okay, you qualify for the help now, but if you better yourself, we're not going to punish you for it,
Here.
And that's what the Democrats have been doing. Like, you use the term plantation. I don't want to go as far as using an analogy like that, because people get sensitive. But yeah, they're keeping them trapped there and not bettering themselves. And people in Coney Island, I mentioned they haven't had a Republican in 100 years. How is that working out for them? The crime is going up. The homelessness is going up. We saw just in 8 years of de Blasio, everything that Giuliani and Bloomberg did was destroyed. The homelessness is way back up like it used to be. The crime is back up like it used to be. You have everything that New York City was before Giuliani fixed it up back, just in 2 terms of a Democrat. And the Democrats out there need to really wake up and realize that you need to stop the bleeding now and not make it worse, because it's going to be hard enough to recover as it is for any Republican or Democrat. But if you're going back, if you're going to continue down the road of Democratic leadership, it's going to get past the point of no return. It was one thing before in the 70s and the 80s when crime was the main problem, and you could fix that on the Giuliani. But now you have the coronavirus, which was put in not as serious as the mainstream media blew it up to be. Obviously, people died, but it wasn't the Black Plague, it wasn't smallpox, it wasn't anywhere near as deadly as they made it seem, putting people in a state of fear, psychological destruction on adults and children, and shutting down businesses all across the city. And they wanted these, it seems like a communist agenda, because you have to destroy the small businesses in order to implement communism, and they have destroyed them. It's discouraging for people. You see the for rent signs for commercial
Yeah,
businesses. Why would I want
everywhere.
to rent? Why would I want to rent a business if the government could shut me down anytime they feel like it? You have to put things in place that prevent the government from implementing anything that controls how the business operates during a health crisis. I'm an adult. If I realize that the information out there that there's a virus, I make the decision whether I want to go to the supermarket or the grocery store or whatever store. I mean, did the virus not survive in supermarkets? Like, what's the difference between, they had liquor stores open. Like, why wasn't a bookstore or a video game store or something else open? Like, what's the difference between a liquor store and a bookstore or something? Like, either the virus is there, you're making the choice as an adult whether or not you want to go to that business or not. And that's the way I see it. Put the information out there, let people know that there's a virus out there. If you want to stay home, stay home. If you want to go shopping at a store, then go shopping at a store. So I think what the government did was very tyrannical, and and a lot of people agree with me on that. And it's unfortunate that everyone doesn't agree with me on that, because so many people were brainwashed with fear to make this seem like this is a deadly plague, and it wasn't. It's obviously people die, but people die from the flu, people die from a lot of things, and more information came out afterwards. If you're age 20 to 49, the survival rate was 99.98%. So why do you need to shut everything down? Why do you need a vaccine for that? You need a vaccine for that because billions of dollars are being made by big pharma. It's coming out now that, according to leaked emails that I saw with Fauci, I
Yeah,
still have
it
to,
was my next
verify
question.
that he was recommending hydroxychloroquine to his friends and family, but publicly saying that Trump is crazy and, hydroxychloroquine has these side effects. Something that was safe for decades, over 60 years, and all of a sudden they're saying it's not safe and you shouldn't take it. Why? Because if they had something that's already readily available, like hydroxychloroquine or any of the other methods, then they can't approve an emergency vaccine. There's no reason for an emergency vaccine if you have something that works now. So the only reason why everything was discredited is because they didn't want a cure that was easily acceptable. They wanted a vaccine because the pharmaceutical companies can make billions of dollars off of it. Everyone's getting paid off. There's a saying, we're all in this together. The people that are all in it together is big tech, the mainstream media, the billionaire corporations that profited off of this. Amazon made a killing, Walmart made a killing. All these companies made a killing. I'm not saying all of them are, were involved in that with some of the corporations, but big pharma's in it, mainstream media's in it, big tech with their censorship. There was I didn't read the full email as far as with Mark Zuckerberg, but supposedly offering Fauci censorship, a
Tools.
discussion about censorship. So, I mean, these are things that are absolutely, we knew it was happening. We talked about it, since the beginning, that things were shady, and people want to call us crazy conspiracy theorists. We said that the agenda was not only a vaccine, but a vaccine passport. And sure, that was a conspiracy theory. The concept of a vaccine passport ID was a conspiracy theory a year ago, and we're seeing it happen now. We're seeing Cuomo actually said, on video, that this vaccine ID card, you need this in order to live a normal life. Like he said it, not verbatim, I'm paraphrasing, but that's what he said, that you need this ID card to live a normal life. Like, that is absolutely absurd for a disease with well over a 99% survival rate. So what do I need that for? What do I need to inject chemicals that alter my DNA permanently, and I don't understand the reason for it. And you don't have most Republican politicians going out there and saying it. Unfortunately, Donald Trump, I love what he did for this country, but he said for people to take the vaccines. Most elected officials don't want to be perceived as an anti-vaxxer. Number one, if the vaccine prevented it entirely, but people are still getting it after getting the vaccine. So it's not going to stop you from getting the virus. It's not going to stop you from getting other people sick with the virus, which is why they're telling people to still wear masks, which are pointless anyway. There's no reason to implement mask mandates, because even Dr. Fauci, he wrote an article in 2008 about how in 1918, millions of people died from bacterial pneumonia, from infections, from wearing masks. So why would you recommend wearing masks? He originally said no, but the narrative was to get, maybe get people sick with those masks, because what are the symptoms of wearing masks? The bacterial pneumonia is similar to what COVID is, basically the symptoms. You get headaches, and you get all types of, you get sore throats from wearing masks. So people get a sore throat and a headache. Right. And they're paranoid, and they're worried if they have COVID, and they go and get tested, and the test results aren't 100% accurate. So they think they got COVID, even though it could be a false positive. So, I mean, it's a psyop from the left. They want to talk about psyops on the right with Trump and a stolen election, saying it's a psyop. But the biggest psyop is the left and the mainstream
psychological
media.
Operation. I'm just
exactly.
unwrapping it.
And they're it's sad, because there are people that I know and love, friends and family, that have been brainwashed by all the nonsense that's out there in the media. And most politicians, Republican and Democrat, they go along with the mainstream media because they don't want the media to attack them. So they just want to be, they put on their mask for the camera. They could tell people to take the vaccine. I'm not going to be one of those people. If I lose the election, I'm not selling my soul for anyone. I'm going to tell it like it is. The masks are BS. The vaccine is unnecessary, especially vaccinating children who aren't even affected by this virus. They're going to come out with a new strain every single year. You're going to have to take it every year, just like the flu shot. They're already talking about another strain release for a third shot in August. So it's nonsense. It's to make the pharmaceutical companies billions of dollars for a disease with a high survival rate that most people will survive with the immune system. Plus, then you have people with the adverse reactions. The VAERS reporting had, last time I checked, I believe over 3,500 deaths, over 100,000 adverse reactions, and that was like a month ago. And VAERS, not everyone reports it to the VAERS, so they could have somebody that died from the vaccine. It doesn't get reported to VAERS, and so those are very low numbers. So there are a lot of people that are dying from the vaccine that's supposed to prevent them from a disease that they probably wouldn't have died from if they got it. So it sounds like common sense to me that I don't need it. I don't need to be a guinea pig. I don't need to be their lab rat, and I don't need to help Big Pharma make billions. So,
pandemic brought onto you and others by the communist Chinese virus and the highest paid man in the American government.
Yep.
Which is Dr. Fauci. Now, Mark, I want to do something I've never done before, and this is to do an ad-lib commercial in English. Usually I do it in Russian. The whole program is in Russian. I thought that I will do this time. I do my advertisement in English. You won't be able to see it, but you will see it in the program, or if you turn on the live feed on live stream on YouTube, I will advertise caviar. Very Russian thing, totally and wholly made in the United States. So, friends, comrades, brothers, ladies and gentlemen, 646-666-9166. Localcaviar.com is the address. Please pay attention. This is something I would like to offer you, and I may not sound, I'm a little nervous, I may not sound as soft and silky as I do in Russian, but please be tolerant, patient. So the caviar is wild caught. The acetra it's made of, the sturgeon it's made of, is an American kind of sturgeon. It's called Hackleback, and it's the highest quality organic type of caviar. The one that you would get at the finest stores. This one has is the uniqueness of this is that it's a wild caught fish, and this is no additives to this to what you see in the jar. It's just the caviar and sea salt. And yet another feature of this product is that it's perfect. It's made so that you would kind of you taste it and you understand that this is what was missing in your life until this very moment. And this is the almost forgotten taste of real caviar, because to tell you the truth, what I hear and what I read from so many, most of the caviar that you see in stores today, sold in big jars and small jars, is made in China. On the farms, God knows what they feed to those poor fish. This poor fish, but this one is a perfect gift. Of course, it's on the more expensive side, as you would expect. You would want to buy for 99 cents a whole jar of caviar. Obviously, it's fishy, haha. But in this case, the price corresponds with the quality of the product. And what is a better proof of that than the fact that you would go to the place that is called the Tasting Room. The Tasting Room on the Shell Road. I'll give you the address in a second. The address is, let me switch to the screen, 2890 Shell Road, the place called the Tasting Room. And this is not the only thing that they have there, the caviar. They have lots of other things. And let me try and switch to a monitor that is here on the screen, where you can, or I can show you everything they have, different combinations of different things to taste. For you can have it straight from the jar. They won't feed you something and sell you something different. There's a very small store when you can really enjoy and have time to make a decision. It's a perfect gift if you come to somebody who you would like to impress. It's extremely nutritious. It's extremely healthy, and this is the product I can recommend wholeheartedly to you. Please do so. Go, and the shipping, the best part, the shipping in tri-state area is free. They deliver it to you right away, and if you live outside of tri-state area in the 48 continental states, excluding Alaska and Hawaii, of course, they're too far away, you will get it by mail if you order it through localcaviar.com. They ship. They are one of the manufacturers I was looking for, one of the people who would say, of the companies who would say, we will ship our unique products to the customers anywhere in the United States, because we have this capability, and the shipping is amazingly inexpensive, considering the quality of the product and the difficulty of shipping such a delicate and expensive product. It's under $30. Most of the time, the top shipping rate I heard is $30 per. So that's the commercial I wanted you to hear today, and I'm back with Mark SZUSZKIEWICZ, candidate for the New York City Council of District 47. What does it include, your district, Mark?
It's Coney Island, Bath Beach, Seagate, which is the private community right by Coney Island, Gravesend, and Bensonhurst, with the numbers 18th Avenue and up. So if you're at 17th Avenue, that's where it cuts off. But 18th Avenue and up to Coney Island and the rest of the neighborhoods that I mentioned.
Russians and Europeans in general, and those who come from Central Asia too, they know a thing or two about the systemic oppression. Systemic oppression, like serfdom in Russia, is still something people remember, and we were taught in schools about how cruel and necessary cruel and unproductive, for the most part, it was. And when the Soviets took over, of course, it was the oppression by your ideology, by your beliefs, by your nationality. Very often, of course, Jews were traditionally included in this targeted part of the population, but so were Crimean Tatars, so were the Gypsies, so were a lot of people who Hitler totally agreed with Stalin that those people should be oppressed as well. They did this, except he took it a step further. he decided that those people just have no right to live. And a lot of small and people, of course, in Ukraine suffered from on class basis. Those who were more hardworking, more firmly standing on their 2 feet, self dependent. They a lot of them were killed during the Holodomor and the down the by on the Volga River, where they had about the same time. But in Russia, they also tried to, and successfully tried, I must say, to kill millions and millions of people. So we know about that the oppression, the systemic oppression, is quite different from what we have in this country. Of course, there are people who are unhappy. Of course, there are people who think they are oppressed because they have strange accent, for example. And if you say I'm from Russia, I just heard I have a friend who is doing the same thing. He's captain first class of U.S. Navy. He worked for NATO. He worked for there was a lot of high-profile people who traveled to Russia, and he accompanied them because he speaks perfect language. But his son, and people know who I'm talking about, and his son made a program. He was working for BuzzFeed, and he made a program, jocular program, saying my father is a Russian spy. And his whole family, his daughter is in the military, and she got or in the Navy, and she got interrogated. She was called in by the security, the intelligence unit there, and she was really for real interrogated because there must be some. I'm looking for some prejudice towards Russians, and frankly, on the systemic level, I cannot find it in this country. I cannot find it. Although, Russia gave Soviet Union before Russia gave every reason to doubt the intentions of people who come here, the quality of the character, etc., etc. But this country took us in with arms, open, and lots of people made it here to a level that quite enviable to anybody. To look at Sergey Brin, say, himself. But let me ask you, this was my little rantish thing. Yeah. But let me ask you this. This is important. What would be the first thing you would do when you come into your office once elected? When elected?
Well, I think, like I said, education is one of the top priorities. I can't do anything specifically as one city council member. I could propose the bills, and they have to listen to me, as opposed to putting a Facebook post, which is why I ran for office in the first place. But I want to bring back. Education is very very broad, but I want to bring back life skills classes in schools, sort of like how they had trade school before I was even born, where people, shop class, where people learned different life skills, how to put their desk together, how credit works, how checking accounts work, different topics, every, for each class throughout the entire semester. So this would be in high school, not in grade school. But that's one of the things. I think the after school video game program, I think, is important because not every kid plays sports. It gives them something to do after school. It wouldn't take place right after school ended. If school ends at 2:30, it would start at like 4 o'clock. So kids have a chance to do their homework, get extra tutoring from teachers, and basically be motivated, because I played sports and every kid plays sports, but in order to continue playing sports, I needed to maintain at least a C average or I'd have to sit out. So that's the same thing with the after school video game program. Kids would also be able to compete against other schools virtually, like one school against another, and certain like with the sports games like NBA 2K. I did a charity NBA 2K tournament in the Barclays Center with the sports TV show that I used to host. So one school could play against another school, just like how they have a professional E-League. You'd have a high school E-League for different video games. Now, every parent doesn't necessarily agree with video games, but this is something that's optional. So if you want your kids to participate, it's also good for the parents in the sense that they have someplace safe for their kids to be past 5 o'clock, so they're not limited to work and picking kids up. But I also believe in and school choice. And I'm, as one city council member, I can't implement it, but you have so many schools that are failing across the city, and the problem isn't funding. The problem is they're just not performing. They waste money. Each child costs over $20,000 in the public school system. Why don't you use that to the private sector? I know Republicans believe in it, Democrats don't, because they keep putting money into a failing system. They spend more and more money on homeless, but the homelessness continues to increase. They spend more and more money on education, but the education seems to fail. If you privatize the schools, if you have school choice where they could go to parochial school or charter school and not be limited to, if you live in this neighborhood, this is the choice that you have,
Yeah.
unless you want to pay. And that's not fair, because if that school is failing, I'm sure there's plenty of parents that wouldn't mind having their kid hop on the bus or the train or give them a ride to school in someplace else so they could get a better education. You know, I didn't come from a rich family. My dad was a mechanic. My mother worked a night shift at a bank, so she was working nights and then drove us to school as kids, and to pay for a Catholic school. It wasn't that expensive back then, but I was able to get a Catholic school education as opposed to the public school education. It wasn't that expensive, but they worked hard for it. I'm sure people wouldn't mind making sure their kids go to a school that's outside of their school district for a better education if they have that option with a school choice. So there's a lot of things with education, and if I can't pass certain things, then I'll try to do things on the private sector, try to see which organizations want to sponsor maybe a facility that's an after school / tutoring program in my district. So, and that could be something that's used as a pilot. If it's taking place in my district and you're seeing that kids are getting their grades up because they would have to keep their grades up in order to participate, then we'll see how that works in my district, and then maybe it'll expand. And how getting funding for that, I could speak to Microsoft, since that's the U.S. based company, and see if they'll donate the video game systems, and to see maybe if it works in my district, then it'll work then I'll get funded by the state and have it statewide or maybe nationally. So it's got to start somewhere, whether it's done through the Board of Education or whether it's done in the private sector with a nonprofit that wants to step up and do it, and then maybe it gets funding down the road from the city once they see that it's working. So there's things that I could do as a city council member, but even if I can't get it done through the city, I believe I could probably get it done in the private sector and get some things done on the education side.
Yeah, a good example is a very contagious thing. It spreads like wildfire. If you see the good coming out of anything, and I must say I differ with you with video games. I'm not a video game fan, but maybe because of the age and everything. But I still have pretty good reactions, and I shoot I'm a good shooter too, with a real weapon. But I am, to me, important for somebody to be able to sew a button or to make scrambled eggs, and don't hurt oneself. This is something that I think a lot of people could do online, and just to show the kids, and some parents who unfortunately lost that skill by themselves, but they understand the value of it, how to repair your clothes, how to fix your shoes, how to try at least. Trying is a big part of human life. And speaking of trying, do you think Dr. Fauci will be ever tried in our system, or he will skate like so many did?
Yeah, he'll probably be escape, go off the grid, be taken care of by the establishment. We'll probably never see it at trial. You already have the mainstream media. If you Google, excuse me, the Fauci emails, the CNN and all the mainstream media, they have articles talking about how he was sleep deprived and the pressures of being on the spotlight. Like,
and
he
he's
was
so old, right?
hard.
He's
Like that's all they, when people Google Fauci emails, that's the only story that's out there. They're not putting the actual emails that matter, that incriminate him. And that just shows you a perfect example of how corrupt the mainstream media and the establishment is.
Is there a source you would recommend to get into those emails just for those
I
who
put it on my link tree, which is on my social media platforms. It's at Mark for NY is my social media. Mark for NY is my link tree, and it has my donate link. It has the Fauci emails. There's over 3,200 of them. You could open it up. You could download it and save them, and in case they ever take it down or something, you could go through them at your own. I've downloaded them and sent them out, so I'll have a copy, whether it's taken off the internet or not. So I haven't gone through all 3,200 of them, and a lot of them are boring, but some of them circulated around the internet. Those are the ones that I posted. I still have to go through the 3,200 and verify that those aren't doctored in any way, and those are the authentic ones. But the original 3,200 plus emails are on my social media, the links in my bio.
Mark, there is a great chance when the general elections come around, you will have a Russian name opponent. So I would like to ask you to come up with a plausible hypothesis of your connection to Belarus, which would be easy for you to come up with. Because, ladies and gentlemen, friends who live in the 47th district here in Brooklyn, please take a good look at this man. Read his program. Read what he's saying. If you can, donate. If you live in his district, if you live in New York City, your donations...
Even if you don't.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm saying that it will be matching funds. 8 times what you give will be given to Mark, and there's like an optimal amount, right? If you want to max out, it would be no more. It shouldn't be more than $2,400, right?
The maximum is $1,000 per donor.
Yeah, but it won't be matched. You wouldn't get $9,000.
Matching is $175. So yeah. Out of that 175, it's matched 8 times and per person. So if it's a husband and wife, they could do 175 each. It's not limited per household; it's per person. Maximum donation entirely is 1,000, but 175 is the maximum that they'll match 8 to 1 for.
Yeah, that makes sense to do that.
Even if you live anywhere in the country, you could donate. New York is the financial capital of the world, and even if we don't have a Republican mayor, we need somebody like myself who isn't afraid to tell it like it is. And I will have a more important, as a candidate, I have a voice. As an elected official, I'll have a more powerful voice because I could actually write bills. I could actually call the mayor out on his nonsense if we do have a Democratic mayor, or even if the Republican mayor wins, I could work together with him. Or if I disagree with him, I'll make sure that, I'm not a corrupt person. I know that. I know a lot of people don't know me, so they don't know that to be true. But most people who do know me know that I'm a good, honest person, and that's exactly why I'm doing this. If I'm in office and I win, I'm going to fight for the people. I'm going to be a voice for the people. I'm not going to sell out for anything because I'm not doing this for money. I'm not doing this for fame. I'm doing this because I was born in Brooklyn. I love my city, and I don't want to see it get destroyed. I have multiple professional licenses. I could get a job anywhere in the country. I could move to Florida. I could move to Texas. But as Curtis Lee says, improve, don't move. I'm going to stay here and fight. I'm not just going to give up because they're destroying my city. I'm going to fight back. I need people to help. Wherever you are in the country, please consider donating to help save New York City. I'm going to fight like hell for it, and I need your help in order to do so. I don't care if it's $1, $5, $10, whatever the case may be. Please consider donating. Mark4nyc.com is the direct donation link. If you want more information about me, it's mark4ny.com. That's my full website. Has all the details about the ideas that I want to pass, more information about me. I went into financial services, like I said, but I've done multiple professions, TV, and a very extensive background. So
let me thank Mark on your behalf. Mark, we wish you to win. And you convinced me then you would be better than any Democrat, whatever his name is. You would do what is right, and you would do what's good by the city, by the people who live in Brooklyn, your constituents. Please win.
Thank you.
Дорогие друзья, I will say a few words in Russian. Я вам представил Марка Шушкевича, кандидата от округа номер 47. Это очень сильно населенный, плотно населенный нашим братом и сестрой район. Пожалуйста, голосуйте за него, когда вы увидите эту фамилию, которую легко запомнить, трудно прочитать. Пожалуйста, голосуйте за Марка. Этот человек-республиканец, этот человек показывает, что он скромный, простой, настоящий народный избранник в потенциале. Мы должны его выбрать, вы должны его выбрать. Я буду голосовать за иноверников. У меня девочка выпала. А у вас Марк. Пожалуйста, голосуйте за Марка, когда придет время, когда вы придете на избирательный участок. Он будет представлять вас лучше, чем любой демократ. И если будет возможность, если есть возможность, конечно, дайте ему несколько долларов. Если вы живете в Бруклине, в 8 раз столько же даст город в его казну. Лучшая сумма – это $175. Выше этого город не умножает. То есть он не дает плюс 8 раз то, что вы дадите. Максимум дайте 175, минимум дайте $1, 2, 3. Вот что я хотел вам сегодня сказать, что вы просто увидели, поскольку мы живем в Америке, и люди спрашивают, как вы боретесь со всего мира. Вот так мы боремся. Мы людей знающих, простых, без большого скандала стараемся провести в нашу власть, проголосовать за них. Огромное вам всем спасибо. До встречи завтра утром, скорее всего, в 9 часов. Всего доброго. Mark, thank you so very much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure being on here and talking about things that I know a lot of people need to hear to be informed about what's going on across the country and in New York. And hopefully I'll get elected to help save New York City.
I'm glad you found the time to come.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Good night.
Good night.